Hi, I'm Gianluca Fiorelli and welcome back to the third session. Today, our guest is a freelance SEO, PPC, and analytics consultant, which is, let me tell you, not so common nowadays. Because nowadays, especially freelancers are really specialized into something, can be SEO or even some very specific vertical of SEO. Or maybe they are just doing PPC, or maybe they are specialized themselves as analytics nerd. But our guest is doing all three things and doing them really well. Is an SEO for many, many years now. He's Dutch, and his name is Arnout Hellemans. Hey, Arnout, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Nice to see you. Awesome.
It's nice to see you too. And let's start with a classic question of mine. How SEO is treating you lately?
Different, I guess. You get less people requesting basically SEO. They want broader help. Like, how do I get into generative AI and those kind of things? But luckily, I don't, as you said in your intro, I don't just do SEO. So I've got loads of work. I still find it extremely interesting, especially at a meta level, what's happening in the big battles between the big players and new players stepping up with search indexes and stuff. So I, I actually find it an interesting space to be in at the moment. I love it.
Yes, surely it is interesting, and surely it's interesting also because it's always changing landscape so fast that when you finally think that you are having all the eggs in the basket and you started to control something, something new is happening. Uh,
But that
not
keeps it
that,
interesting, right? And
yeah,
I think otherwise, like in the beginning, in the early years, it was just get some links, change a page title in an H1, and you'll rank. Like, where's the fun in that after doing that for a few years, right?
yeah. And also, as a common friend, Martin McDonald said in a previous episode of a third session, he was very honest and said, up until it was something like 3, 4 years ago, I was starting to get very bored about SEO because it was always the same stuff. Nothing really changed. And now, with introduction of ChatGPT first and then all the other LLMs, I'm finally feeling alive again as a professional because of these changes make me feel younger as when I was starting experimenting and doing all this stuff. And I think this is a quite common feeling many of us are having right now. But as I was saying in the introduction, you are somehow a sort of an exception in the sense that I don't know, sincerely, I really admire you because I don't know where you can find the hours to do all these things, but you do consulting for SEO, for PPC, for analytics, which is, I mean, I can understand that if even if someone is just doing SEO and offering services as an SEO consultant, obviously must know at least what's happening in the PPC world, and surely he should know how analytics works, because if not, he will not understand an 80% of the things that he's trying to fix or to optimize. But off the record, before we started to do this recording, you were also pointing out to something which is even more basic, but so much overlooked by so many professionals, not only consultants, but also, which is weird, even in-house professional and in-agency professional, which is knowing the business of your company, of your clients, etc., etc., etc. What are the classic mistakes you see when people start to work with a new client or work in a new company? And what are the things that someone not asking the correct question about the business is going to misunderstand?
Basically, there's only one question that matters. And I think it's a very simple question. It's how do you make money? That's the only one you have to ask, right? And it sometimes opens Pandora's box because basically people will say, well, we sell this and this, but in the end, they might not make any money selling that, but make money on the services around it, or just by selling half of the products really well. If you truly understand the business model, it helps you to optimize the website, but also to get the right traffic in the right phases of the funnel in, right? And I see so many people, like when people come to me, they ask me like, I want to rank for this keyword, right? And we've all been there. And then I basically go, well, looking at your website, I don't think that's the right keyword. And then they go, yeah, but I want to rank for it. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not exactly what you're offering. Yeah, but it has message search for you. I don't really care, because in the end, I want you to make more money, because then you can afford to pay me, right? As I said in a quote in on learningseo.io from Aleda, I said, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, she asked for a few quotes, and I said, traffic costs you money, the right traffic makes you money. And in order to determine what the right traffic is, you need to understand a client's or your business model. You need to understand which conversions, which actions on a website make them money. And I see this being overlooked so many times. And I guess you've seen the same.
Yes, yeah, yes. In fact, as I was telling you before and sharing now with
Yeah.
all the people watching and listening to us, I usually spend good amount of the first calls with the client talking about the business. And in order to understand how it really works, to understand what are the mechanisms of the conversion, what are the steps, also what is the terminology they use, what are the terminology their clients are using. And I ask them for them, even if it's not really SEO, let's say, to understand, I ask about the checkout
Yeah.
process, where they find the gaps, where they find the difficulties for people to continue
But uh,
into
but
the
but
checkout.
haven't you noticed that sometimes when you ask them these questions, they don't even know the answers?
That's why I also ask to have to talk with more people than just the one who contacted me. Because I want to talk to the people. Let's say it's like in a totally different situation. Going back to the movie industry that I know very well because I've worked there for many years before doing SEO, is if you are asking, yeah, I don't know, you are the director of photography and you are asking question just to the director instead of asking question. Obviously you need to ask the question to the director because he foresees how the picture is in his head. But then you have also to ask to the actors about the photography because they know how well they are going to be depending on the light they are receiving, or you know the art direction, the art director, in order to how can I use and where I can put the light and how can I use the light, natural lights inside your set and so on. So the same is when it comes to marketing, substantially, not even SEO. You have to ask to please let me talk with the customer care director or with one person responsible for customer care. Let me talk with the product, the people working in the product, even if it's an engineer, and I will ask him 20,000 times to explain me things because I cannot understand, especially in B2B, what they are saying literally. But this is the only way to understand fully. It's not just like asking to your counterpart at the client side or in your company to send me the buyer persona. Why you created this buyer persona? Why this and not that? And so on. Because so, for instance, in SEO, you can understand that maybe some kind of content is totally off of that kind of buyer persona and so on. But then you were saying, knowing the business, then obviously you also have to, let's say, talking, knowing about the business, let's say, is a qualitative assessment about the work. But now there is also the quantitative assessment, which is analytics. And you are really vocal about using proprietary data instead of classic GA4 third-party data and so on in order to create a good and better talking about the business, better talking dashboard of
Mm.
data and information.
Yeah.
Why? And
Well, it's very simple, right? I think I got so frustrated with people talking about bounce rate, and then when you'd ask them for things like what is a bounce, they would just say, "Well, somebody comes to your page and goes away." Well, it isn't. It's basically one hit was recorded in GA, so this was universal, right back in the days. And I think when they moved to GA4, it actually became really customizable and usable. But loads of people are still complaining or have complained or like about GA4, but GA4 is actually set up for you to configure it in a way that you can measure the things that matter to you, right? It could be little things like somebody scrolling to to basically a lead form and they've taken more than X amount of seconds getting there. So you could see that they're interested. You can start measuring loads of other things. You can add labels to sessions. You can do like all of these kind of things, right? I think we basically Universal Analytics was a visualization of the log files, but it would just give you pages. And with us moving to progressive web apps and all kinds of like JavaScript based websites, it just became really, really different, right? And I think GA4 and other tracking tools just give you a lot of opportunity to send usable data, first party data, into a measurement system that you can use, right? And you can build dashboards on, and you can connect it to BigQuery or other databases to do even further analysis. But I think the other way, so if you can start measuring this, but also get your backend data about a user, about sales, about returns, about whatever into a same data set, you'll get massive amount of extra insights that will help you run your business a lot better. And this is where I'm thinking loads of people have struggled and are struggling. The amount of basic GA4 setups I bump into is quite astonishing. You probably have noticed the same.
yes, I mean, I had a very, very, very long and steep learning curve. With, so
I
I
think
must
we all
admit it.
did. I
Yeah,
think we
yeah.
all did, right?
But thanks God, I know many people, a few people that are really good into it. So I was able to learn thanks also to these people. Now I'm not an analyst in the sense that I couldn't put my hands and doing implementation itself, but I know how to guide people in order to do the implementation themselves. And this, I think, it's important to do. But let's talk about if we have this quantitative information thanks to a good implementation in GL4. There are two things that for me are quite, and I think many others, uh, are quite complicated to calculate or to truly understand. One is not new, really, which is all the things related to GDPR and cookies and the same, you know, ad blockers, so everything which is related to not the user not giving the permission to track it, also for statistical reasons. And the other one is a substantial, for me, not so clear possibility to give a correct attribution anymore, which is can be painful, especially for the clients, for a business not to understand how to attribute the value of something. For instance, this conversion is coming from where? The best contributor to this conversion, what was because I was visible on ChatGPT, so people then type in my brand on the browser, on the browser and found me, or because then went to Google and click on organic search results or PPC ads, this is becoming more complicated.
It is. And especially because we're using different platforms that don't leave traces, right? So, HTTP traffic, there's always a refer. Some are obscured, but most of the time they're there, right? But if you're in an app and you then click a link, say you're in ChatGPT and you click a link on that, what it basically does, it opens a browser window and just there's no refer. So this is happening everywhere. So I'm starting with the whole attribution thing. So I usually dumb it down a lot. And with that, I basically say, let's go for a blended return on ad spend or revenue on ad spend. So basically, I take all of my ad spend and I basically plot it into my revenue or even better, my profit. And then I basically look at that number and go, is this okay for the business case? AKA, is this a number that I'm happy to do some experimenting on? Then again, I think you also need to distinguish which traffic source is valuable in what phase of the conversion cycle. So, for instance, price comparison Google Shopping is definitely end of funnel, just pre purchase. Whereas if somebody looks for a comparison or features, it's way earlier in the funnel. And even before that, it's more awareness. It could be LinkedIn, Instagram, or TikTok, or whatever. And I think you need to start getting to feel what people need, where your customers are. And that's why I like to blend it into one basically ad spend and then hold it against my revenue and then start playing around and seeing how it influences it. Because I've basically given up. And I think the only company that can do pretty decent attribution modeling is the guys behind Chrome, which is Alphabet slash Google, right? Because they've got a lot of data, they've got a lot of touch points, even more if you combine Android with that. But the rest of the companies, even the likes of Facebook with all of their pixels, they won't be able to do proper attribution. In my opinion, it's not an exact science, and I think we need to let that go. So we need to start looking at the broader picture. What are you willing to spend to get your results, right? So that's why you need to start with first party data because as you said, and now this is the little step into your first question. So GDPR prevents a lot of things from being tracked, right? I know Google Analytics is still tracking it somehow and doing this probably is a conversion, but you won't see it, right? So they do some stuff on the background. But other than that, you need to start working with what you have. What I've done for in one of my projects is actually looking at like the real backend data and storing their just looking at the path, the hits on the server, which will give you some indication. In this case, that was 20% higher, right? So yeah, we do lose a lot, right? I think this is because a lot of the retargeting and stuff and nasty things that were happening, we've just the same as with a lot of things, we've abused it, and as such, there is heavy regulation on it. So we got to work with the data we have, and I would recommend looking at a, how do you call it, a blended revenue on ad spend, or even better, profit on ad spend. And once you have that, you can start working what is reasonable for me? What do I want to spend to get these actions? And you need to start measure in between. Like, hey, I've done this awareness campaign on TikTok, and 2 weeks later I see my funnel going up. Now then you can correlate that and you can learn from that. But it's not an exact science. And some people will say it is, but I'm highly doubtful.
No, no, yes, that's why maybe one of the, you can call it trivial addition relatively recent addition to Google Analytics, I think it was the possibility that you can annotate things.
Yeah, they've
Because it,
reintroduced it. Yeah, that's
yeah,
awesome.
because that is great, because now you can finally try to create this correlation thanks to a timeline of annotation.
What I used to do and what I also do now for a client is I basically have a Google Sheet which basically has all the releases, all the website changes, and everything being plotted in. And then also the Google's core updates and annotations just in a Google Sheet. And what I was using, so in Looker Studio, you can then basically connect that sheet and plot it on the timeline of traffic or conversions or whatever. I think that's a better way to automate loads of things, just using a Google Sheet or some other data set where you store all of these changes. But definitely, I love the fact that it's back because there's so many times where you'd go like, "What happened back then?" Right? And I think we've all been there. So yeah, I'm really glad it's back.
And talking about setting up data analytics, I think that probably one of the, again, maybe boring things to do is how to set up a rules, a governance rule, so that all the rules about how to measure things are the same in the organization. What are your, okay, rules can change from organization to
Yeah, yeah,
organization, let's say,
yeah.
but what are your cornerstone in this kind of governance rules?
UTM naming strategy is a really, really big one because uppercase, lowercase, people just do something like it makes it a pain. You can't repair it in hindsight, right? So it has to be there the right way. So I would always go lowercase, define it, build templates. You can just build a macro in Google Sheets or Excel that people can use. Just UTMs are a really, really big one. I think another one which is often forgotten is just remove internal IP addresses or even the development agency IP addresses and stuff. Because especially if you have quite a big office where the homepage is your website, it just screws up loads of your data, right? That's also governance, in my opinion. And then there's like the standard reports you want to set up. Another bugbear of me is people with access. I've seen so many GA accounts where like there's like three administrators, and when you ask them who are they, we have no clue. That is dangerous, right? So they could make changes as admins, they can do loads of things, they can do story, but the same thing goes for Search Console access, right? And I think Google is now saying these meta tags are not being used, and as such, you might want to remove them and stuff. But still, like the amount, you probably have the same as a freelancer. If I go into Search Console or Google Analytics, there's a gazillion. Even if though I pointed them up, could you please remove me? Right?
No,
They
yeah,
don't.
yes, actually, quite recently, I did it myself. I mean, I went to over to my Search Console and I start to remove myself from properties that clients of 5, 6 years ago, but they were still there. Well, I must admit that some of them I'm maintaining the view for knowledge for myself because maybe they are very, very big websites, so it's always cool to see them, but obviously not maintaining and extending a personal NDA for them. But sometimes there are, the classic single project that lasted 2 months for an audit, and I still have the Search Console there. And it's making a mess for me because when I have to need to start searching for the ones that I'm really working on.
Yeah, but I think that's one of the things you need a company-wide strategy, right? I've worked in multi-million dollar businesses. I'm still in. It was 5 years ago, right?
Yes.
And I'm
But
there as admins with a DNS verification, right? So it's not very easy to remove myself because they need to do that. So it's those kind of things, but also UTMs are really big. And and others as well. It's yeah, there's a lot, but just to name a few.
And let's move a little bit to another activity you are really into, and which is for me quite fascinating because sometimes it can present insights also for SEO, a lot of insights for SEO, which is PPC. What is your opinion about all these? I mean, also in PPC as it is now in search, class organic search, Google is pushing AI into the trough of the advertiser with all their, Performance Max and all the other AI Max is something not very original names they are giving to their advertisement proposal. What are your opinion?
They can work really well if you feed them the right first party data. So a lot of these algorithms and AIs, they can do awesome stuff, but if you feed them shitty things will happen, right? So I've had this where I think this is a famous story, but in it happened to me as well, but not as big. So there was this company, and I think I read it somewhere online, but what happened was they basically imported a Google Analytics call into their Performance Max campaigns, right? And they basically said, if you can get me one of these goal completions for $150, you can spend 10K easily or 20K, right? Normally it would only get like two or three. So the maximum spend would be like $500 or something like that. Then somebody made a mistake in GTM, triggering that event a gazillion times, right? So it was probably they changed the goal or something like that. So suddenly Google was getting the signals that they were making a lot of money. They were getting the CPA as promised, right? So they were starting to spend up to like 10 or 15K a day, and they only noticed like 5 days later. Now imagine how dangerous that is, right? So these are all like, it's all outcome driven. I'm not a big fan of a lot of these things, but with the right data and giving it the right time so it gets a lot of user signals, it can do awesome things. But you have to set the boundaries, because I've seen so many campaigns just cannibalizing my brand traffic and basically taking those. So basically, they would get the brand click and then they would say, hey, my CPA is awesome. Yeah, but that's because a brand click, a brand conversion is a lot cheaper than getting one that I basically told you to get, right?
Yeah.
So these kind of things, it's all about first party data, giving the right signals and setting the right boundaries. And I think we're getting into an age where Google wants to take more control. Google will just say, give me your profit, how much profit I can spend on getting you a conversion, and I'll do the rest. Just give me a blanco checkbook and let's go. And like, that's where they want to go. Like, that's truly where they want to be.
Like when still now so, but it was a classic when I was talking with friends working especially in company, that the classic Google representative, the AdWords representative of Google, calling them almost weekly in order to, we can do that, we can do this. And now with AI, Google is substantially substituting this human contact with an algorithm.
It's pretty bizarre, right? Because there's so many relatively dormant ad accounts, and if you don't check it, it will just auto set up campaigns for you and auto make suggestions and auto create. Like, it's bloody scary, right? In a lot of ways, and I think they will get better and better and better at doing this. But I think it was it 3 years ago they started removing all the search terms. They basically, because of privacy reasons, we're going to not give you all the search terms where you appeared upon. And I was like, that's just BS, right? You're basically making me blind and making me, or that you want me to fully trust you, which is something we as SEOs, but also we as PPC, at least me as a PPC, don't really do. And I think a lot more. However, those Google reps sometimes get you into betas that will move the needle for your campaigns. So I tend to talk to them, but only if they're like second tier. I don't want to talk to a just grad that calls me up and saying, "Hey, why are you not doing this campaign?" Because it doesn't work for me.
And I have another question. You are with one feet in SEO, with the other feet in the PPC world. But you know, as an SEO, how AI overview is substantially even quitting more clicks even than before. And so all these lamentation, but rightly we have as an SEO in terms of organic traffic shrinking, especially for informational queries. But then I started quite later than SEO, but I also start seeing people in PPC start to complaining about the massive presence of AI overview, generative synthetic answer, also let's say expansioning people also ask things to know, etc., and seeing how much this huge presence, for instance, of AI overview was affecting also on the CTR of the ads. Even if ads eventually still tend to be above the AI overview, they are squashed to the search menu, so it became invisible.
They are, but mostly for dynamic search ad pages. So that's basically Google picking the right page and the right ad for you. I think on that, it's cannibalizing a lot. And as you rightfully said, it's more informational queries. But a lot of the informational queries, we're running ad campaigns. Say you do city tours in Barcelona, you want to be there if somebody basically, if a consumer asks a question to Google saying, "What's up in this weekend? What can I do? Where should I go?" If you are a tour operator in Barcelona, you want your ad to be shown, even though it's not directly conversion related.
Yeah, yes,
So,
I remember a classic of Booking, for instance. Booking was for queries like the name of a city, because more information of the name of a city cannot be anything else. But because they know that usually if someone is searching for the name of a city, it can be two things. Or someone like a student that needs to know something
yeah,
about the city, or someone who is in the really, really beginning of starting
yep.
a conversion journey, a
Yeah, it's
customer journey to a
well,
product.
a typical one is what's the weather in Barcelona in that week of October, right? That's a very early sign that somebody's thinking about going on holiday or a business trip or whatever.
Yes, indeed.
But
And
it's actually an informational query.
yes, yes, totally. And talking about AI and advertisement, another thing is that we usually say that people in our industry says both SEO, both PPC, is Google is still not pushing, for instance, AI mode. Even I don't think that Google will push AI mode as it is now to all the main search surface until when it will understand how to put advertisement in.
You know, I monetize it. I agree.
Yeah. But if you have you ever found yourself thinking, how could it be the placement of advertisement in a totally AI generated SERP?
Yeah, I've thought about it a lot, right? And I think the big battle that AI companies, generative AI companies are now doing is how can I get more context around a question, right? So you see Perplexity with Comet, OpenAI now coming out with a browser called they announced it like this morning in a live. So it's basically Chromium in the background, but then skinned with an assistant next to it. And I feel like an AI can become really helpful if it knows more about you. And then at some point, you build a trust that it will do the right thing for you. And then you're happy to basically, especially for the free versions, to basically see a 5 minute non skippable ad, just as we have in YouTube. So I think that could be a way of monetizing, but I think it's too early days because you feel you first need to get proper buy in from the user, because now you'll scare them away. And I think the big battle now ongoing is basically who gets these users, like who gets the sticky ones, who will go for perplexity. And once that becomes clear, you can start thinking about monetizing in different ways. I think that it's way too early days now to talk about that. I think the other one I could see happening is, especially in the assistant kind of way, where they take a cut of what the assistant buys or saves you.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. And I think that a third probable way to introduce advertisement is if we are using something like a mix between, let's call it AI overview, AI mode, and web guide, for instance, and using advertisement, especially the content of a landing page of the advertisement, as promoted bits of a synthetic answer. So integrating the ads inside the answer, but obviously needing to label it.
Yeah, but I think that could easily be done with dynamic search ads, which is basically, hey, you basically can say anything in this folder you can send paid traffic to, and this is your budget. Right? So for that, it would definitely work. I'm thinking with loads of these things, it's really, really early days, and Google's being attacked. And I want to basically what you said about AI mode. I really think they just built that to cover their bases if things get too big at, say, adoption at OpenAI or at Perplexity or whatever, Claude, then they will start pushing it more, and they highly likely have an even better version. But they really want to just keep the I call it money printing scheme, which I think Google Ads is. They want to keep it running. That's basically my opinion on it.
Yes, totally, totally. And let's talk about AI, but how do you use AI? How do you introduce using AI in terms of maybe self-made tools or other tools, but in order to work better? I mean, let's consider you do three things. We're taking a lot of hours.
Now, loads of things. So I use it a lot as my sparring partner, describing problems I run into or debugging things. I usually get like, so it basically gives an answer, and then two of those points are complete like bullshit. One three things are already checked, and one I'm like, oh wow, I didn't think about that. So I use it a lot in that way. I've done a big campaign lately where I had product photography, but I didn't have it as video. And I used VO3 to generate me probably 50, 40 variants I could use on TikTok, and that I could use on YouTube Shorts, and that I can use in the Instagram and Meta ads. Like, I was really impressed what VO3 could do. So that was another use case. Another one I've been working on with a friend of mine, you might also know him, Robin Ellenson, in his company, which was basically just looking at a page, determining whether it was a good enough page to get in the index, and then write a meta description, a one page description, a page title, but all based on instructions of a condensed brand guideline. And then basically just use the API to get all of that. That was another use case. I've done a lot in automation, basically doing image recognition, and that was home trained. So we had a lot of data, image recognized, And this was the early days. So this was 3 or 4 years ago. And we basically built an automated eBay listing tool because we had to list about 1,000 items a day.
I have another question, the last one before talking about you. During all these years, where there is a zero click phenomenon, it's not recent, but how longer has become the customer journey than, let's say, a few years ago? Is taking so many steps as it seems as it has begun, or not?
I don't think so. I'm gonna answer it the typical SEO way. It depends. It depends on your product. It depends on your price. It depends on your audience. Think about things like in and AliExpress and like for those, it's literally just boom boom and you're out, right? So the decision is very fast. If you look at the younger audience, like my kids are all teenagers, I guess yours are slightly
Yeah.
older, the same age, but for them, if they need to get to an answer fast, right, just instantly, and they make purchase decisions also pretty spontaneous. Again, but think about a car, right? I think over the past 20 years, buying a car has massively changed. It's completely different. Is it faster? Is it not faster? I think it's way more dispersed, right? We don't go for test drives. We just see a top gear item on a car, then we Google the car, we look at a few pictures, we go away, we get retargeted, then we see something
Oh, yes.
else.
When I was saying it's becoming longer, it's becoming more multi-step than it was before.
Yeah, but even not in one go,
Yeah,
right?
yes.
It's these chunks. And I was really amazed by something you can type into Chrome where you say Chrome semicolon slash slash topics.
Hmm.
And what it basically does, it takes all of your open tabs over if you're logged into Google, and it basically puts them into these topics. So
Yes.
you can basically see, hey, somebody's looking at buying a car, but at the same time, he's looking to go on holiday to. So those are different journeys, right? And those journeys might be massively apart. Back in the days, it was literally I want to go on holiday to Southeast Asia. And then I'd spend 2 hours investigating that and making a choice. Nowadays, it's my phone. This happens. Blah, blah, blah. We're everywhere, and that's why I said that the one who's best positioned to do advertising on this and knowing about all of this, as long as they don't need to are forced to sell Chrome, it's Google.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Totally. So let's talk about you.
Ah,
So Arnaud is a really nice guy.
thank
You
you.
have probably noticed. And he is famous in all the SEO industry for one big passion, which is oyster. So let's transform this video podcast from about digital marketing to a cooking and recipe and food
Oh,
podcast.
I'd love that.
So
I'd
I
love that.
need your expertise. Let's say that we have two different kind of occasion. One is, let's say, an easy go meet up with friends, and one is a more formal dinner.
Yeah.
For these two different types of situation, which type of oyster, and combined with wine or other alcohol, would you suggest from your
Oh,
experience?
so the first one, the less formal one, I'd go for the larger oysters. So these are the number zeros or the number ones, because the lower the number, the larger they become. And then I do them with a garlic butter on the barbecue. So you put them on the barbecue as a whole. Then you basically cook them in their own moisture, so the seawater. You open it up. You basically open them up and then you put some garlic butter on with a lot of parsley in it, a little bit of cayenne pepper, and then you finish it off with some Parmesan cheese.
Ooh.
Everybody will like love them, right? My kids, everybody. So if it's more like a casual thing, because it's also kind of messy, right? It's garlic butter in an oyster, a large oyster, and then serve it with a little bit of bread, white bread, so you can dip it in, get an extra of the taste. It literally tastes like more like a big mussel, right?
Mhm.
The steamed mussels. I have yet to have found people that don't like that one. Whereas the more formal one, I'd go for a Merlot red wine vinegar. And I specifically say Merlot because it has less acidity than the normal one. So it's slightly nicer. And then the classical way is with a bit of Charlotte and then thinly cut. Do a bit of that, bit of fresh ground pepper, open them up. I love the really nutty ones, the nutty taste of a native oyster. You can get them from Scotland. In the Netherlands, we've got the native oysters. They're slightly flatter, so they
Mhm.
open up. They're really, really good. So that would be my go-to. And then if I want to do a fancy one, I'd go and make a lemon granita, and then put a lemon granita on there with a bit of, how do you call it, bit of lime zest, and then just because it becomes very cold. It's
Yeah.
wonderful. So
Okay.
those would be my fancy ones. I've got plenty more, but those are the ones
Uh,
I would do. So if
well,
somebody doesn't like oysters, they get the barbecued ones because they don't actually taste like oysters. It's just like garlic butter, and who
mm.
doesn't like garlic butter,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yes.
So
And
and the other one is the more formal one.
where people can catch you up? Are you're going to attend or talk to some conference in the next month, so people can
Ye-
catch your brain and not just talk about toasters, but also other things.
Oh, for sure. They can all, of course, find me on X, on, how do you call it?
Blue
Blue
Sky
Sky. So my name is Arnout Hellemans or at Hellemans, or LinkedIn, Arnout Hellemans. I'm gonna be on a panel in Barcelona in, what is that? 3 weeks
International
time?
Search Summit.
Yeah, ISS. So that should be good fun. So I'll be in Barcelona, I think 12 till 14. Reminds me I need to book a hotel.
Okay, I remind you because it's getting closer.
And the other one is that, and I've only confirmed one next year because last year I did 18 and it was way too many. So next year it's going to be Hive in Manchester.
Oh,
So
we will
that's
meet there
organized.
too.
Yeah. Are you going to be there as well?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I spoke there last year. I did a panel last year. Charlie was put on an amazing event. And hopefully I get invited to Search and Stuff again in Antalya because that was 2 weeks ago and it was a blast. It was really, really nice. It
Yeah.
was really good.
So from here, a big shout to Yamur that she was a guest here a few weeks ago.
Yeah, but
Thank you,
that's good.
Arnaud.
And where are you speaking, Gianluca? If they want
Oh, well, I'm
to,
going to speak to International Search Summit, and I've already reserved the hotel.
very good.
And then I'm going to an Italian conference in December. Then, yes, Manchester for I5 and Friend of Search. I'm coming to your land.
Oh, wow. Well done. Well done. I'll be there because I'm judging the awards. So, but not speaking, but you'll see me. So basically we go to the same conferences. So they must be good, right?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Arnaud. It was a great pleasure to have you here. And
Thanks for having me.
And for you all, remember to ring on the bell and subscribe to the channel so you will not miss any episode. Thank you.